This video may contain offensive language or be frightening to some viewers. Viewer discretion is recommended. Okay, so before I begin, I just want to say that this story is true. What I'm about to tell you really happened to me, and I'm not just saying so. This happened when I was a little kid. We lived in a smaller house back then, and I shared a room with my elder sister. We had a bunk bed, and I slept in the bottom bunk. Or I tried to. For no good reason, I was afraid to sleep there. My parents got tired of me crawling to sleep in their bed night after night, so they suggested that I should sleep next to my sister in the top bunk. My sister wasn't too fond of the idea, but she finally agreed, with the condition that I would sleep so my head was lower, at the level of her chest and not right next to hers, since I once punched her in my sleep, causing her nose to bleed. I, of course, accepted her term, since it got me out of the bottom bunk. I slept next to her and everything seemed just fine. I no longer had nightmares, and I felt safer next to my sis. But then one night, I just couldn't sleep. My sister, on the other hand, was smiling contently in her dreams. I listened to her steady heartbeat and watched her chest rise with each inhale. I listened to the silent sounds of the night. When I saw something dark moving from the corner of my eye, naturally I turned to see what it was, but all I saw was the wooden edge of the bed. I thought it was nothing and turned back to look at my sister as she shifted in her sleep. But soon after I had turned away, I saw that movement again. I spun my head quickly to its direction, but again, I saw nothing. I got scared and moved closer to my sister. I shut my eyes tight and waited until sleep took over me. The next morning I woke to the absence of my sister. I peeked over the bedside before climbing the 3 steps down. I walked into the living room to find my sister watching the TV and went to watch kid shows with her. I didn't mention that I had seen something moving next to the bed. I thought she would laugh or tell me it was nothing. The day went on like any other, but the later it got, the more uneasy I became. I found myself stretching the bedtime, but eventually our mother told us to go to sleep, and that was final. We brushed our teeth and went to bed, and our parents came and kissed us goodnight. My sister was again fast asleep. I clutched my blanket and hoped that the moving had been just my imagination. But then it was there again. I was afraid of it, but I wanted to know what it was. I cautiously turned my head, but when I looked straight at it, it disappeared. I turned away, and as I had thought, it returned. I turned again to see it, this time slowly and carefully, not to look straight at it. It worked. I saw what it was. A hand. A bony brownish green hand. with long black nails, reaching over the rail of the bed. At this point I was terrified. I automatically looked straight at it, only to see it quickly pull away, and as scared as I was, I crawled over my sister and looked over the edge to see what the hand belonged to. Nothing. Just the bare floor and the bottom bunk. I laid back in my bed, and when I looked away, the hand rose over the edge again. I wanted to see it, but as the hand reached over the side and finally cribbed the edge, I couldn't take it anymore, so I looked at it, causing it to retreat. I stared at the top where it always rose, and it didn't rise back. But I was getting tired, and soon drifted to sleep. Each night was the same. I saw the hand, but never what it belonged to. I stopped seeing it when I moved to our current house, and me and my sister got separate rooms. I thought the hand had only been in my imagination, fed by my fear of the dark, so I never mentioned it. It was a few years back that I was talking with my sister about our previous neighbours, a sweet old couple, when we started talking of all kinds of things we remembered from that house. For the first time ever, I told her about that sickening green hand I had kept seeing. She looked strangely at me and said, "I used to see it too." After the events that took place when I was 8 years old, things went back to normal for my friends and I. The guy who had tormented us was gone, and we were pretty much safe again. This continued until we finished primary school. When this happened, we didn't see each other very much, apart from a few who went to the same school as me. Up until that point, my best friend was Jake. He ended up going to a different school, so we only saw each other twice since we finished school. When we were both 13, we had both moved on and weren't friends anymore. So one day, when I was 13 or 14, I met up with an old friend. His name was Ethan. He had also been friends with Jake. When we met up, we decided to go to a large park that was located between our houses. We walked and went to the swings for a while, but left after a girl started shouting at us. We walked to the baseball court, close to the exit, as we made our way towards Ethan's house. This area was surrounded by thick bushes and trees, and was easy to hide in, so we had no idea what was about to happen. We weren't paying much attention to our surroundings, as we had a lot to catch up on. We didn't notice a group of masked people dressed completely in black approaching us until it was too late. We were surrounded, and we saw that they were all armed with kitchen knives. There was 6 or 7 of them surrounding us, then one of them spoke. He demanded all our money and our phones. He said that they would kill us if we refused or tried anything. His voice sounded familiar, and when I got a better look at him, I realized that it was Jake. I don't think he recognized me, because he pointed his knife right at me and demanded our stuff again. At this point, Ethan had also realised who it was. Simultaneously, we both told him who we were. He looked at us for a second, and then pulled his mask off and greeted us. He told me that I hadn't changed much, before telling us that we were lucky and to get out of here. We started to walk away, and as we reached the exit, we turned and saw them running into the bushes. Freaked out, we ran into Ethan's house and didn't leave for a few hours. When it came time for me to leave, I ran straight home, avoiding the park. I saw him again after that, but I always avoided him. I almost never went out on my own again for the next few years. So my childhood best friend, who was like a brother to me, almost mugged me. If he hadn't realised who we were, things could have been very different. The people with him seemed pretty ready to stab us, even if we did what they wanted. He had screwed me over and dragged me into bad things before this, but I can't forgive him even though he let us go. He wasn't exactly a good person to begin with, but this was way too far. I did recently hear that he has turned his life around, but I'm done with him and hope I never see him again. If anyone is interested, there is a lot more to tell about Jake and the bad things he did when we were friends. Do you believe ghosts exist? If you do, what are they? Souls? Disembodied spirits? Echoes of the past? Hysteria? Or the physical manifestation of the human mind? The knowledge of ghosts goes back for centuries and can be found within every culture throughout the world. There is much information and material on the matter, yet plenty remains unknown and unproven. Scientific experiments have been conducted in the past in discovering the existence of the afterlife and ghosts. One of the most notable investigations conducted is the Philip experiment. In 1972, in Toronto, Canada, a group of parapsychologists, led by Dr. Owen, proposed a theory that the paranormal phenomenon of ghosts is actually the physical manifestation of the human mind. They would conduct an experiment using a scientific method to replicate the events and experience of a ghost. The group involved contained 8 ordinary individuals with no acclaimed abilities, powers, fame, or knowledge of the paranormal. The group's overall objective was to create a ghost through expectation, imagination, and visualization. The method to achieve this goal was to create a fictional character whom they could communicate with through seances. The group created Philip Aylesford and fabricated a backstory to his character. Philip was a 17th century aristocrat, Englishman, and had a tragic love affair which led him to taking his own life. All members of the group spent time in developing, discussing, and imagining Philip in preparation for the experiment. The group for about a year participated in seances to communicate with the fictional ghost. One night, Philip was able to communicate with them by taps or rappings to yes or no answers. Soon the group described experiencing increased paranormal activity as Philip would shake or move the table around. They would hear ghostly voices, lights dimming, cold spots, etc. Dr. Owen repeated the experiment with different groups and found the same effects and concluded it to be successful, even though the paranormal experience was believed to be the result from the human mind. No scientific explanation was offered. The Philip experiment was believed to be successful as it was able to be recorded and filmed. The research grew in fame as it was replicated by other groups with their own creation of fictional ghosts they communicated with. Despite all the documented results, the experiment has been criticised to be faulty on conclusions, observations, lacking anything scientific, and even labelled as hoaxes. The resulting paranormal phenomena of the Philip experiment has been in an endless debate, whether created by forces of the human mind, or that an entity was summoned. That's the closest I could find to an origin of these characters. Both Hoodie and Masky technically aren't creepypastas, they're not proxies nor suffer from the slender sickness. They're just characters from the Marble Hornet series on YouTube, and that's it. A lot of people still believe that they're